Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to two film geeks from Wiltshire, England. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and subscribe. Hello, podsters. This week, as Don't Breathe 2 hits cinemas in the US and the UK, I think, we'll be having a look at horror sequels. As always, I am joined by the encyclopedia man. That is Mr. Boaz Dix. How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir.
Good. Should we go with my pick first?
Yep,
which
sounds
is good. Evil Dead 2.
Groovy.
Groovy indeed. Why I picked this one, it was kind of a really easy choice with this one. I didn't really have to think about it too much. I was kind of preparing because it was your pick first. So if you picked it, I was like, oh shit, what am I going to pick? So I was maybe considering like Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. That's really good. One of the Jason ones, and Jason Goes to Hell. That's quite an interesting film, which I'd quite like to have checked out. But yeah, easy choice for me, Evil Dead 2.
Nice.
So what happens in Evil Dead 2? Well,
what doesn't happen?
yeah. At the end of the first one, like Ash I think is the lone survivor, and he walks out, and then the iconic POV evil camera goes right into him. But in the start of this one, he's with Linda, his girlfriend, so it's kind of a bit of a... They're not really connected so much.
It's basically a reboot, but just with the two title.
Yeah. They're not really connected
compared
to the second and third one.
Yeah, then I would consider this kind of a reboot, but that it's using the two title. It kind of reminds me...
or a remake.
yeah, basically it's or a remake. It kind of reminds me, I think, what was it? Was it the Scream films? That somebody was saying, like, Scream 4 or something has got absolute sweet fuck all to do with the other ones. It's kind of like another... Do you know? It's like a redo, really. It actually kind of reminds me of, like, what was it? The Far Cry series? Like, well, not quite, because, at least 1 and 2 are connected. Oh, actually, do you know what it reminds me of? The Fistful of Dollar trilogy. How The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly has got nothing to do with the first two, but it has the same actors playing basically the same characters. Yeah, it's kind of like that. That would be a better description.
Yeah, a little bit. But at the start of this one, in Evil Dead 2, Ash and Linda, his girlfriend, arrive in this cabin, and Linda gets pretty much possessed by the evil demon, or however you want to call it, pretty early on, and he has to... well, Ash basically decapitates her pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it looks like people have been there before, and when they're looking through the rooms, there's like this tape recorder, and he plays this tape.
Which was a bad idea.
Yeah, who was reading out the lines of the Book of the Dead.
The Necronomicon.
Which was on the table, and basically unleashes more of the evil dead or whatever. And meanwhile, the daughter of the scientist that was there is coming with her partner to the cabin, and they meet these other locals to find a way to the cabin because the bridge has been destroyed. So they come into the fold as well, and the evil fucks them up, basically. And basically have to try and survive, and who survives is Ash, of course, with his detachable chainsaw and sawn-off shotgun, which it looks fucking epic as hell.
You make him sound like an action figure, now with chainsaw action.
And I really want to dress up as Ash on Halloween one day. That'd be so cool. So yeah, that's the film, really.
Yeah.
Really short and sweet. Just Sam Raimi throws everything at it with how much little money he has and really goes for it. Really creative stuff. What did you make of this one then? Do you love it? Or?
Yeah, man, it was amazing. I thought it was great. Bruce Campbell is great in this. The cinematography is awesome. All the practical effects and stuff, and it is relentless. It's pretty crazy, pretty frenetic, pretty gory, but it's also, like, really funny. I found myself chuckling quite loudly.
Yeah. Right, directing then. I like the way they bring back like the iconic fast tracking shots, you know, going towards the cabin that was used so brilliantly in the first film, you know, where they literally just strapped a camera to like a plank of wood and like ran with it. Just really on the fly, cheap filmmaking.
Yeah.
And there's a great one where the shot like bashes through the cabin door.
Yeah.
And somehow like carries Bruce in the shot and like he's spinning him around like the lens axis kind of thing through the air.
Yeah.
And like crashes him into a tree. Just a really great visual. I have no idea how Sam Raimi did that.
Yeah.
And plus the music is really great. It's difficult to describe. It's just like a really low drone, but there's like a voice somewhere in there. It's really quite freaky and just a great sequence, that.
I agree. I think those shots are absolutely brilliant where the camera is tracking and chasing Bruce Campbell, but it's like it's not a camera, it's it's a creature. And it just does this great job of like it's smashing through shit. It's like, how the hell is the camera doing that? It's not made of like concrete or whatever. But yeah, it goes through several doors at one point, and then there's another point where it picks him up. You're like, how the hell is it doing that? Pretty awesome stuff. And then running away from him as well, because I remember one bit where it's chasing him through the cabin, like, and then it just zips all the way back outwards into the woods, and I'm like, wow, that was quick. How the hell did that
because he loses him. He loses Bruce Campbell. Ash, and he's like, where the hell's he gone? And then just buggers off, the evil.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
So I thought gives the evil a little bit more personality, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Again, you mentioned this film is hilarious. I think one of the funniest moments that made me laugh out loud was the moment when the evil hand escapes the bucket and you think it's been trapped in a mousetrap or something, but escapes and then puts its middle finger up to Ash.
Yeah, that was funny.
It's brilliant, that made me laugh out loud. That was brilliant. There's a great sequence when the clocks stop and it goes quiet for a few beats, and then all of a sudden there's just shots everywhere in all these crazy angles and movements. But it's the sound that makes the sequence great, all sorts of loud drones, and you see the actors like following the sounds with their eyes. And if you have like really great speakers, like 5.1 speaker setup in your house, like I do, all around sound, it sounds amazing. It goes all around the room. And I feel like more films should utilize like sound coming from different areas of the cinema or your home cinema, because it's so effective. I feel like you don't get that enough in certainly horror films.
Yeah.
There's certainly a lot of like disgusting elements as well. I like the sequence where Bobby Joe, played by Cassie DePavia, gets scared and like runs out of the cabin and then gets attacked by the woods with like branches wrapping all around her. What made it horrible was like the branches were going in her mouth.
Yeah.
And when she's been dragged through the woods at like great speed, I might add, the branches are actually going in her face as well, which just made it really disturbing.
Yeah, in her cheeks, in her forehead, just like really crawling in there. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
When things go in characters' mouths in films like that, it's just like, it really freaks me out. It's really horrible.
What about where, what was it? Like an eye. He's fighting like...
Yeah.
He's fighting one of the zombies or whatever, and literally an eye, gets smacked free and goes straight into one of the...
Because he like stamps on her head.
Yeah, stamps on her head, yeah. It's like crushing her face and what have you, and her eye flicks into the girl's mouth.
Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah, that's pretty gross, yeah.
Funny as well, but horrible.
Yeah.
And the end is just so like frantic and they just throw everything at the screen with the witch's makeup and having like a massive neck, and the trees like attacking the cabin, done with like great model work. Then a giant demon face in the door, and the trees have got like Ash pulling him towards the demon face, and he chainsaws the demon's eyeball, and liquid goes everywhere.
Yeah, he stabs it in the eye. It's just black blood all over the place. And then there's like loads of zombie heads in like a collage, like, we've won.
Yeah.
And then a bloody portal that sucks them through. You're like, holy crap. Yeah, it was quite a lot.
Just really creative horror with quite a large dose of humor in the designs of the demons and creatures, There's certainly a conscious thought of making them scary but funny as well at the same time, I felt like. You got a favourite shot or scene?
I've got quite a few, is the thing. It's mainly in such a short time. It goes from like Like, just amazing scene to amazing. Like, there's no rest. When the film starts, it just keeps going.
Yeah.
It hits the ground running. Of like, as soon as it starts, you know, his girlfriend gets possessed, decapitates her, buries her, she comes back to life, and it just keeps going. You're like, holy crap. Like, all the way through the film, there's scene after scene after scene. So I'm trying to think, like, what my favourite thing... Actually, no, I know my favourite thing. Bruce Campbell wrestling with his own arm. That is the most awesome... Like, one, it's just such a cool idea, because his hand is possessed. And it's trying to kill him and stuff. But I just love the scene because he's smashing... his hand is smashing him in the face with plates. He's trying to grab his hand, stab his hand, bite his hand, you know, and he's flipping around and hitting himself and other things. That was incredible. And then when he's unconscious, his hand just drags his body.
And you even get, like, a POV shot of the hand, like, as well.
Yeah.
Going towards the cleaver.
Yeah, that entire scene was absolutely brilliant.
And then there's a great moment where Ash, like, stabs the evil hand on his own hand still, you know. And then he cuts it off with the chainsaw, screaming hysterically, "Who's laughing now?" You know, while his own blood is literally splattering his face.
Yeah.
I think my favourite shot is a fairly simple one. You know, after the short but sweet gearing up montage of Ash attaching a chainsaw to his arm, and then he cuts off the barrel of the shotgun, flips it into the back holster with a nice sound effect of flipping. And the camera does a nice push in right into his face, and he says, "Groovy."
Yeah, that was badass.
You know, it's so epic.
Yeah. And I quite like that as a character moment because, like, he has just been through hell, like, just crazy nonsense, attacked and scarred and cut, has had to cut his own hand off. And basically through it all, you think, my God, Ash, you are going to die. There is absolutely nothing you can do. And then I like that moment. It's like, yeah, no, I'm in control now. It's just like, you know, when we talk about other films of the writing of, like, building a character different from how you first met them. Like, he is scared shitless through the first half, and who wouldn't be? And then I like that. It's just like, it's a great scene, and it's just like, yeah, he's an action hero now. He's a badass now. Oh, I was going to mention, like, some things I didn't like. You know, I don't want to be, like, a negative Nelly or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But, I need to mention things. I liked the practical effects, like, basically all of them. The only thing I didn't like is a stop motion.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like the stop motion. No, I'm sorry. I've got to kind of disagree.
Okay.
I just don't like the stop motion. I think, like, all of the costumes, fucking brilliant. You know, miniatures, amazing. You know, every kind of little thing that they do, just absolutely incredible. But when they start, and puppetry and what have you. But when they had, like, his stop motion girlfriend get up out of the grave, I thought, what the fuck was that? I just thought that looked... That looks horrible to me, you know. I think they should have redone that with...
Really?
Yeah. It should have been a costume or a prop. I just thought that really...
Okay.
That's something I really didn't like.
I thought it was charming, you know.
It was I thought it was funny.
I think...
No, I don't think it worked. I thought it was funny that she did the dance and what have you. I thought that was hilarious, but it just took me out of it. I'm like, man, you've got such good animatronics, puppetry. You know, like, for example, when the deer head was alive. I mean, like, and the whole room is alive.
Yeah.
And you've got all these monsters, and it's just, it's so good. And that, to me, is, like, just the weakest effect in the entire movie. It was like, really? You couldn't just... have her in a costume? Like, why did you do it? You know, I didn't like the stop motion. So, you know, that's my only negative. Otherwise, it was pretty excellent.
I think for me, with that dance, the stop motion added to the creepiness of that scene. It kind of made it more scary for me.
Okay, well, fair enough. To me, it just took me out.
Maybe it's just watching old Harryhausen films where you see, like, the skeletons, Jason and the Argonauts or whatever, and the Golden Fleece, you know. That was pretty scary watching that as a kid, but, you know.
Yeah, true. But when I see that sort of stuff, I just go, oh my God, the effects back then were terrible. Like, that's my reaction. I'm like, oh, wow, we've come a long way.
All right.
And to me, that was one of those moments of, Jesus, we've come a long way. But then it's like, we haven't, because the other, as I said, practical effects in the film are phenomenal. They're just phenomenal, you know. All the creatures, every time somebody turns into a deadite, or just all the other stuff, it's just phenomenal. And then it just makes that stick out worse. If like all the other creatures were stop motion, then maybe I would give it a pass. But to me, I don't think that really worked. So, you know, I don't want to be a negative Nelly, but I've got to mention things that I didn't like. And I have praised the effects so far in the film, but that's one thing I didn't like.
Such a Nelly.
I'm not. Yeah, shut up.
What's your score then?
Oh man, it was so fun. I'm thinking like 8.7.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking around the same area, I think. Again, like super creative, really creative of what you can do with such a little budget in a horror film like this. Again, I didn't mind the stop motion. It was actually nice and charming to see that stuff. For me, it does add to the creepiness, so I'll go like 8.8, I think. Right, screenplay then. I think there's not much to the screenplay.
No.
I think it's kind of nice where, the two sets of characters meet halfway through and, dealing with that. And yeah, there's some interesting stuff that happens. Yeah. It does feel like sometimes that it's just like from scene to scene, it's like, well, what can we do now? What freaky thing can we do now,
Yeah. So yeah, I do agree. Like, this film it doesn't have any breathing room. Like, there is no breathing room, not even at the start. Like, I was really shocked, actually, that it hit the ground running as fast as it did. Like, I know nothing about Ash. Like, through this entire film, I know Sweet Jack about Ash, about his girlfriend, about the couple, the country people. I only kind of know them as the stereotypes. They're country people that want to help them get to the cabin. Yeah. These are people that are translating the Necronomicon. Ash is with his girlfriend. But beyond that, like, they are just being attacked relentlessly by demons. Like, that's the whole thing. And most of them die. And I'm like, I know nothing about these people. So I do agree there isn't much of a... The script is just the horror. That's it. And the comedy and the slapstick comedy that comes with it in the lighter moments. But, it's not really a character piece or... And it's not a character piece at all. I got no idea who these people are.
I think the other thing I must say as well, it's not particularly scary, this film, I don't think.
No.
There are some attempts at, like, jump scares. There's only one that really works for me, but most of them don't really work, I don't think.
The one jump scare that I quite liked was when the camera pans up and her boyfriend is like a deadite. The guy that she came with, I'm not even sure if it's her boyfriend, but, her research partner goes up and he's a deadite, and I was like, holy shit.
Oh, right.
I wasn't expecting that, and that was pretty cool. Other than that, I kind of agree.
I wasn't scared by that.
Fair enough. What bit creeped you?
The one that made me jump was when Jake is stabbed in the chest and Annie is dragging him through the cabin and leaves him, like, next to the hatch of the cellar, and the evil Henrietta jumps out. That made me jump.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was a damn cool effect. Yeah.
And then grabs Jake and drags him down to the cellar.
Yeah, chomps
was
him
effective. But plus, like, the fire hydrant type blood spewing was wonderfully excessive.
Yeah.
But how do you not die instantly by being stabbed in the chest? I don't know.
Oh,
I feel like you should... I mean, it goes in, like 6 inches at least. Like, you should die right from this. Anyway.
Yeah, that's true. But although that said, like, the people in this film are durable. Like, this isn't like some sort of Dr. Pierre. Like, you wouldn't survive getting your hand cut off, without, like, cauterizing the wound or whatever. Yeah. Like, he literally he takes his goddamn hand off with a knife. There's no possible way.
He does put a bandage over it.
Yeah, later, like much later. Like, he does that, and then he's firing his gun at the hand in the walls and having getting sprayed with blood and all this other crazy stuff. You'd think you'd be just pissing blood out of your stump. There wouldn't be. That would have been
a cool sequence, actually.
Yeah,
of him just trying to strap it up while he's, blood going everywhere. That would have been cool.
Yeah, well, just blood is pissing out. Yeah, because that didn't happen. Like, he cut his...
Because it seems like they got plenty of blood.
Yeah.
To use, so,
Yeah. I quite like that when he shot the walls and then the blood just...
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it's not that scary. It's quite fun. It's a fun film, and it is pretty gory, but it's like... I think the problem why the scares don't land is the fact why it's so good, if that makes sense. That you're like, okay, I haven't had any time with these characters. It hits the ground running. Ash is a badass and stuff. But I think one of the problems is you don't really get a chance to, empathize with Ash very early on or any of the characters. Yeah. So I suppose when they start to explode or go missing or get eaten, you're like, well, that looks cool, but I don't really feel anything for them. I don't really know them that well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's probably the problem. But on a positive note, like unlike other films where you have to wait for setup, there is no setup in this film. Like if you want to see, like, you know, the Evil Dead attack, they do it straight away.
Because like with Doctor Sleep, it feels like it's 2 hours of setup.
Yes,
anyway.
yeah. We're going to mention this in the review, but my God, it took like an hour and a half before anything actually happened. You're like, holy crap, that it was a bit much. That film was long. That was, but it was a complete it was a complete difference. I can't say that word. There's a complete difference between juxtaposition. These two films, because this felt like it was a breeze. This went by real quick, and it was a lot of fun. But we'll talk about Doctor Sleep. I do still like Doctor Sleep.
Yeah. But back to screenplay for Evil Dead 2. I like the fact that Bruce isn't stupid in this film, because after Linda dies and realizes the evil is back, and he decides to try and get the hell out of there and tries to drive away, but of course the bridge is destroyed. The evil has somehow destroyed the bridge, so you can't escape. Because in so many like cabin in the woods horror films that you see, you're like, just leave, people. Just get the hell out of there. Whereas at least like Ash attempts to get out, you know.
Have you watched the film The Ritual? I was watching a guy review The Ritual. It's a really good film, but that was a case of they go into the woods. It's creepy woods, and they see like a deer that's crucified in the trees, and they carry on into the woods. It's like, are you fucking insane? Turn around, you know. But I do like the fact that Ash he's a proactive protagonist. He's not just letting shit happen to him. He is constantly, if things hit back, he is constantly trying to find a way to survive. Yeah.
I really like the laughing scene when the moose on the wall like reanimates and starts laughing, and then every like inanimate object is moving and starts laughing somehow.
Yeah.
And then Bruce like starts laughing with them all. But I don't know why we are seeing this. I'm like, I don't really know why this scene exists, but it looks cool. But I'm like, why? Maybe Ash just couldn't help but laugh with them, or it could just be as simple as like to have a big contrast in the juxtaposition from everything laughing to then hearing something outside, and then Jake, played by Dan Hicks, jumps on him and attacks him. Maybe just it's for that contrast, maybe. But yeah, I mean, it's a great scene, but it doesn't really fit with everything else. But if you know what I mean, Did you find that? Or
it was a very strange scene. It made me chuckle, but I do agree. It was kind of like, what the hell is going on? I like how. Like, Bruce is kind of bouncing while he's laughing. He's curling up and then, like, he's bouncing and dancing. You're like, what the hell is going on? Maybe he's just trying to process this. He's like, you know, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Just got to laugh my head off for a bit. Can't beat him, join him.
Exactly. Laughter is infectious. If all the furniture is laughing, you might as well laugh along.
I like the sequence where Jake has like the shotgun and forces Bruce and Annie to look for Bobby Joe in the woods after she ran off. And the scene is kind of intercut with Jake shouting her name with like the POV evil approaching them. And then it gets to him and then like nothing happens for a moment. Then all of a sudden Ash becomes possessed by the evil again, and you kind of forget that he does have like the evil still in him from earlier in the film somewhere. And it was just that timing of the scare I really liked with Ash coming up. That was really good. Plus it's kind of a great twist, like having Ash become like the antagonist for a bit in the film.
Yeah.
Just to change things up a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
I quite like that.
Yeah, that was a cool moment. Especially he picks up the guy effortlessly and just throws him into a tree and goes after the girl. And you're like, oh my goodness. You know, I thought he was the hero. Now he might conceivably have to be put down.
But it doesn't last for too long, I think, which is good. It would be kind of weird, I guess, if he basically ends the film as the villain. It would, as the antagonist, it wouldn't be satisfying.
Yeah, definitely. Like with the script, you know, we were saying it's just idea after idea for situations to get in, like just constantly. The amount of ideas they come up with is astounding. You know, the amount of different like sets, the amount of different things
Creative
that go.
choices,
It's very creative. Like, especially of a film this length, it's not that long, and just you have like them getting into different things. It's like, you know, he's being attacked by, you know, his girlfriend and what have you. Then they come in, they attack him because they think he's crazy. Then he's trapped in with the mother. Then it's, you know, it just keeps going, and you're like, it is really creative. Just the amount of choices they do, and you know, have different characters be possessed, and I mean, a tree gets possessed. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah.
And then at the end, the surprise ending, that was crazy because they sort of set up some lore really quickly at some point when she's talking about reading the translation from the Necronomicon and the history of the Necronomicon, and it's like there was a hero who he banished the evil a long time ago. And it's like, well, he didn't do a good job. And at the end, when he goes through the portal, he is the hero, you know, that banished the evil. I thought that was cool.
Did you notice in the book you see Ash like in the blue shirt with the chainsaw?
Yeah, it's a drawing of him in it. In a blue shirt with two things, and it's that exact same shot that they close the film out with. All the knights, and he's like, yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that was a great twist. I like the ending. That was great.
There's some cool funny lines. We just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. Does that sound fine? When he's like talking to himself. Let's go down to that cellar and go carve ourselves a witch. And then there's swallow this.
Yeah, that was great.
You know, with a shotgun.
Yeah.
I mean, my favourite line, groovy.
Yes, that's my favourite line.
It's always going to be my favourite.
That is a party excellence. Groovy.
You got a score then for screenplay?
I'm not sure if this is too high. I'll give it a 9.
9?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, it might be too high, but, you know, fuck it.
Yeah, that's very high. I mean, I've certainly in this podcast before, I've always kind of liked subtlety and finding nuance in my films. I really enjoy that. There is no fucking nuance in this at all. No. And, you know, it's a very simple script. I kind of like the idea where, you know, Bruce becomes, or Ash becomes like the antagonist at one point. That's really cool. And like the two characters coming together, like what they're going to do. And so I can't really go like a 9 really.
Yeah.
You know, the script is really short. You know, this is a very short film. This is like an hour and 20 minutes, 24 minutes or something. I'll go like an 8.1, I think. Certainly the strongest elements are definitely the directing and the acting, definitely. Because, you know, with the acting, this is a tour de force of acting from Bruce Campbell. Yes, there's like no subtlety at all, but if you're not going to go subtle, you just go fucking hell to leather with it. And that's exactly what Bruce Campbell does.
Yeah.
So acting, Bruce Campbell's performance in every frame of this film is amazing. But the moment like he chainsaws Linda's head in the vice is amazing. You like being from like really scared of like, you know, of doing it to like extreme anger and like, you know, while he's sawing the head off in two and, you know, there's blood goes everywhere. He's just incredible in that moment. And you mentioned briefly, there's a great moment where Ash is looking in the mirror saying he's still alive. And all of a sudden, like evil Ash, like comes through the mirror to put his hands around his neck, and I did not see that coming whatsoever. I was like, wow, that was so well done. It's great acting because obviously there's a hole in the wall, and the double and Bruce Campbell have to match their movements perfectly. Yeah, there's not much movement going on, but it fooled me, you know.
Yeah.
I thought that was a mirror.
No, same. I thought it was a mirror. I was quite surprised. Yeah, it was a good bit of acting and a great scene, and just a great directed.
Credit to like the lighting as well and the camera work to make that convincing as well. That was really well done.
You know where her mother like comes up from the floorboards and, you know, is being all monstrous and what have you, and Henrietta, and then tries to be like all sweet. Oh, you know, you remember that song? You know,
oh yeah,
like a little girl. And she's like, "Holy shit, that's my mother!" And it's like, and Ash grabs her hand and is like, "No."
It's not.
Yeah, I just quite like that scene. I thought that was good. I just thought everybody did a pretty good job there.
Yeah, that's good.
Even like the hick, the hillbilly guy, when his girlfriend got missing, I like that performance from him. Of just like, you know, no, we've got to get her back, you know, and it's,
I mean, I was quite happy when he died. He was a bit of a twat, to be honest.
Yeah,
I was
he
like,
was,
yeah, that's quite satisfying when he dies. Favorite performance: Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell. Yeah.
Score: Boaz for acting.
I'll give it a 9 again. Fuck it, I don't care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, God, your scores in recent weeks have been so high.
I know. I'm just loving everything.
Yeah.
You should take my eyes. Like, they're brilliant.
To be fair, I'd probably go in the 9s as well, because Bruce Campbell is just incredible. As I said, tour de force of physical acting. Just that scene alone when he's wrestling with his own hand. Not many people can do that.
To be honest with you, he's so entertaining to watch in this film, and you could tell like he must have had a blast acting this. And to be honest, like even though it's like halfway or whatever, or a third way, you know, he gets the other people into the cabin. I would have been just as happy if it was just him. Just the rest of the film was just him.
Yeah.
Like it was just a one-man show of him against, you know, the creatures. I think it's fine. I think he acts great with himself. Yeah. Just the way he acts, the way he talks to the creatures, the way he talks to himself. Yeah, man, I would have been just as happy if this just been a solo outing.
Yeah, so I'll go like 9.1, I think. Right, let's add up the scores then for Evil Dead 2. That wasn't sexy, was it? You say my voice is as sexy sometimes. I'm like,
Oh, yeah, I creamed my pants really hard just now. Yeah.
Evil Dead 2 gets 52.7. Pretty good score. What is your film then, Mr. Encyclopedia Man?
My film is Dr. Sleep.
Cool. So why did you pick Dr. Sleep or Stephen King's Dr. Sleep?
Stephen King's Dr. Sleep. Yeah. You know, I heard about this film like just before it came out, which wasn't that long ago. I think it's 2 years ago now. And it just looked really interesting, and the whole idea that it would be a sequel to The Shining, which is obviously like a cult classic,
Yeah.
I thought that was quite an interesting thing. And, you know, I just kind of like the look of it, the little bits that I'd seen in trailers and clips and stuff. It just looked really quite good. So that's kind of why I picked it. You know. And, you know, it's got Ewan McGregor, who's always brilliant.
You quite a big Ewan McGregor fan then?
I mean, I enjoy it. If there's a film with Ewan McGregor in it, I enjoy it tremendously. I really wanted to watch this film for a while. There's a good excuse to watch it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I might just add as well, before we get started on it, this is quite a fairly recent film, 2019, so if you haven't watched it, go watch the film first, then listen to us. Listen to the second part.
Yeah.
Because we will be talking spoilers. So, what happens in Dr. Sleep?
Okay, so it follows on after the events of The Shining. I'll just kind of crack on, because the film does take a while basically building its world before really anything happens in it. But the short of it is Danny. So it's Danny Torrance. He plays an elderly Danny Torrance. His shining ability has allowed him to, well, he can do loads and loads of stuff with it. There's a little girl that he's communicating with across state who is also a shiner. So in case anybody doesn't know, people that shine have like vast psionic powers. You know, they can do like loads and loads of stuff.
Psionic?
Yeah, you know, I think that would be the official name. Like, you know, psychic, telepathic, like all that kind of stuff.
Psychic,
you know,
yeah.
Contacting spirits, trapping ghosts, telekinesis, astral projection.
Yeah.
They can do lots and lots of stuff. They do it via something called a shine, which is some sort of power in them. So he, you know, he's talking to a girl that is a, you know, very powerful shiner when she's very small. And there are these group of other shiners who eat people that shine, you know, which is Rose in the Hat and her gang, the True Knot. And so they're looking for the girl to, you know, eat her, because when they eat people who shine, they live longer. So, yeah. And so it's the good guys trying to take them down, take them to judgment for their crimes, and the True Knot trying to, you know, eat the girl.
Eat their steam, so they can become immortal.
Yeah, exactly, her steam, yeah. And Danny Torrance helps out.
Yeah, I mean, I like this film, but I do feel like this is... I think there's no accident at all that Stephen King like has his name attached to this film, like in the title, on the poster. Stephen King's The Shining, because obviously it's fairly well known that Stephen King did not like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Yeah.
So it does feel like Stephen King was just like desperate to get a film out about The Shining.
Yeah.
You know, just like this is more like my book, not like Stanley Kubrick's film. Forget that. Watch this instead.
That said, I think probably the attachment of Stephen King is just the fact that he's quite a popular author, and it does feel like it is more of a sequel to the film than the book. I mean, I think there is a lot of stuff that's in the book that's faithful, but the hotel is still around, and there are nods to the actors like Jack Nicholson and the actual film and shots from the actual film. So I don't think you can ignore, I don't think the director really ignores the fact that, if anybody comes to watch this, it would mainly be because they watched the film. Do you know what I mean? So it has the aesthetic from the previous movie.
Yeah, I haven't read the book. I would like to read the book, and see what the differences are, but as a Shining sequel, it's fine, but I don't feel it's necessary.
No,
there's no real point.
So
why this exists?
Yeah. So I mean, if you took away the whole previous movie, this basically could be a separate story with separate characters. That can shine or do whatever. But it introduces so much. So, for example, The Shining was about a hotel that's got ghosts and stuff, and the kid has these special powers. And the dad goes nuts. But that's about spirits. This film does, try and tie that in with the fact that he can trap spirits in his head. But then it goes a completely different direction. Most of the plot is about, the true knot and basically this wider mythology of people that eat people that shine. They had nothing in the first film. This is an entirely separate mythos that's been tagged on.
And yet you still have there is a very strong Shining connection as well, with obviously at the end they go back to the Overlook, and there's a lot of great nostalgia,
Yeah.
Certainly those scenes I enjoyed the most.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the end when they go back to the Overlook, it does really connect this to the previous film. But even going back to the Overlook, it's not that's just a way to weaken Rose and to defeat her. Really that stuff, it's not organic to that plot. Do you know what I mean? The whole thing is about Rose and the true knot. And then later he's like, do you know what? I have an idea. Let's go back to the hotel and use that to, and then that's when the film really feels like it connects with the previous one.
Right. Directing then. There's a little scene near the beginning I really liked, was when Dave Stone, played by Zachary Moher, walked into the kitchen with Abra's birthday cake, and he sees loads of knives and forks all over the kitchen floor, and he's like, what the hell? But as soon as you see Lucy Stone, played by Jacqueline Donahue, in the wide shot as he walks in, you can see her looking up at the ceiling, and she's like, no, that's not the what the hell moment. He looks up, and then all the spoons are on the ceiling, and then when the spoons all fall down, Danny, played by Ewan McGregor, and Rose the Hat, played by Rebecca Ferguson, they both feel something, that the Shining power is connecting them all somehow.
Yeah,
that was quite a clever scene there, where you assume the weird thing is all the cutlery on the floor, but
that
it's just quite clever. Where as soon as you see Jacqueline Donahue, she's looking up. It's just quite a clever little bit there. There's a great moment when Abra accidentally walks Rose the Hat while she's shopping. Sorry, I'm watching Game of Thrones, so it's basically walking.
Yeah.
Then Rebecca Ferguson's acting she can't, she's feeling something, and then she's kind of walking her as well at the same time. And if you notice, in the freezer window,
yes, you see the little girl's face. I love that. I thought that was incredible. You see her reflect. It looks so organic. Yeah, it looks so organic and real. Just that's one of the things that I think the director has implemented so well with the use of special effects. It's just, they just work, they're not too flashy, but they just work, and they're so subtle where you're like, oh my God, that's pretty clever.
Because you could easily miss that.
You could easily miss that, but it's just how well it works. You're like, she looks at her reflection and the girls are staring, and it just looks so natural, it's so nonchalant, and you could definitely miss it. I love how when Rose the Hat does that, these scenes of, what the hell would you call it, where you have these scenes of astral projection, where her soul literally leaves her body to try and find the girl. I thought that was incredible. Mainly because I really did like that. I'm not gonna whatever. I think most of the time when somebody does something like that, she's flying around the city and what have you, you'd have the camera follow her, or you'd have some shots. But I just like how she is dead center, and it's just like the world is moving, like the city is moving towards her, and she's, the room is moving towards her. I just kind of like that,
I didn't actually like that very much.
You didn't? I fucking loved it. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, she's like flying through the air and like ends up in like Abra's mind memory wall, and then like Abra, she goes into Rose's like mind cathedral, and like with blue hair and like no eyes, and there's like just a projection in the ceiling and stuff of like the universe or something. It's all a bit weird, not very scary, and I know it's all in their minds, but I feel like they're showing off a bit with the CG and stuff, and it's going a little bit too far with the spectacle, and it doesn't feel grounded or scary.
I don't think it feels scary, but I did like it. Yeah,
I liked, Rose putting her hand in the filing cabinet, and it gets trapped by Abra, and this, when she pulls it out, it's all bloody. That was good. I like that. But yeah, I just feel like the scene went too far with that stuff, trying to be too weird and just a bit too out there for me. Certainly with like all the other like mind connection stuff in the film, there's nothing really like that. It just goes a bit off the wall. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, I quite liked it. I liked the fact that it went off the wall. I thought, if you're gonna do something like that, make it sort of a visual spectacle, and I definitely think it delivered on that. It was so, unexpected, and it was so much that I was just like, wow, this is pretty cool. It just went quite fantastical. I quite liked it. I thought it was amazing. It's kind of weird that you don't like. Well, no, it's fine. I would actually say that's one of my favorite scenes there. I thought it was just okay. I thought it looked amazing. Yeah.
For me, it just tonally, it just a bit too much. I like the scene when like Grandpa Flick dies. Like the CG is like really good when he goes from like this normal state to different stages of decomposition in like flashes, and then like bursts into steam. I really like that. I've never really seen anything like that before. And then later with the gunfight, they all like die in like this decomposing way, not in flashes, but they kind of go quicker, like vampires in a Blade movie.
Yeah. I think it looks pretty cool.
It's just a really nice concept and idea, though.
It is, yeah, and the fact that they all do it, and it's just so seamless and it's so quick, but it's so detailed as well, because it's like they're basically, their body feels it's like a prune. It's like all the skin is going like that. Oh, then the skin goes, and then it's like, do you know what I mean? And then it's like they crush down, and then it's dust and it's smoke. And you're like, wow, that's quite a lot for a death scene. But I like that scene. I thought that was pretty cool. Like, they each get shot. It's just a regular gunfight. But every time they're shot, they do this crumple, skin melt, disappear thing. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Also, I forgot to say, like, in the supermarket bit as well, like when Rose the Hat puts her hand behind her head, and then when you come back to Abra, that's Rose's hand like behind Abra's head, and that was quite a nice idea. That awesome. They're in, just visualizing that they're in the same mind or whatever, connecting, and then boom, Rose is flung across the supermarket. Just a visually nice scene, and showing their connection is like getting stronger and stronger, and then like Danny, it collapses off screen as well. That's kind of what I quite liked in the script, actually, is that the further you go along in this film, their connections are getting stronger and stronger, and then it kind of becomes like a mind chase film. A chase film with their minds, Yeah, definitely. But when this film gets really exciting is when they do get to the Overlook. That stuff I really liked. I loved like Rose's death, Rose the Hat's death. Because when she's trying to see all the boxes in Danny's mind, they're kind of having a bit of a mind meld. And Danny says, "They're not special, they're starving." Not quite like that, but
Yeah, he didn't become Batman for a second.
He could have done. He could have had Batman in one of those boxes. You never know.
Yeah. I am vengeance. Rose the Hat does sound like a Batman villain name, though. Rose the Hat.
Yeah. To be fair,
just throws hats.
And then all the scary Shining characters are all over her, and then they put their hands like under her skin, And I thought that was like a really creative and disgusting way to kill someone like that.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant.
Just a really quite horrifying visual there. And then, like, my favourite stuff, certainly my favourite shot, I think, in The Overlook, the camera is behind Danny at a high angle, and ever so slowly he goes round the corner, and I was like, are we going to see this wins? Are we going to see this wins?
Yeah.
Goes round with, like, epic music cue. But we don't see them, but I was kind of glad we didn't see them, because I think it would have just been a bit cheap, I guess, because he's just directly copying the first film. But when Danny puts his head in the hole in the door, and then all of a sudden, crash, the axe comes through the door, and then I thought it was like shining footage of Jack Nicholson hacking his way through the door, was cut into the film, from the footage from The Shining. Yeah. But it wasn't. It was all recreated. That really fooled me and made me jump big time. I was like, whoa, shit. Yeah. That was my favourite shot, I think.
Yeah, they even recreated the blood scene when Rose just walks by and it's like the elevators. She's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, she basically looks like that. He's like, that looks pretty cool. Move on.
It's pretty awesome.
You got a favourite shot then?
Yeah, I'm going to disappoint you. I don't give a shit. Like when she's flying through the street, I thought that was awesome. I don't care what you say.
Okay.
Yeah, so that might be one of mine. Yeah, okay. I think there are a lot of really good shots. I mean, even if we go just even earlier from the Overlook stuff, I think the Overlook stuff was amazing. When he gets possessed, the whole mental battle they have in the maze. I think there's a lot of things that are really damn cool, visually. Yeah. In that part, there's so much going on. Oh yeah, so like times where he meets ghosts early on in the film. So I think the creepiest moment to me personally is when he's sleeping and then a hand goes over him, while he's laying in bed. I thought that was damn creepy. And the hand going over it is a woman's hand, and it has all these flies and shit. He's like, what the hell? And he turns around and it's a dead woman just covered in flies. And then not only that, it's like her baby is next to her that turns around and it's dead, covered in flies. Like, mama, I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, that was pretty scary.
Yeah, because that was the girl he slept with.
But yeah, it was the woman that he slept with. Yeah, that he was going to steal her money. No, he stole her money. He stole her money. Yeah. After he woke up.
But yeah, it's just great the details in this film as well. Because I think if you notice, like she has a fly on her eyeball. In that scene. Which is pretty freaky. So, score for me for directing. Yeah, I think Mike Flanagan is really good at this sort of thing. He did Haunting of Hill House on Netflix. He did that, which is really, really good. Probably better than this, I would say. But Flanagan does a really great job. I'm not a fan of that scene that you really liked. I think it just goes a little bit too far for me. But the Overlook stuff, I think, was done really well. Some of the things in that I didn't like, and I'll get on to later. And I'm just wondering as well, like, why they didn't actually use actual footage for the memory stuff from The Shining and just put it in this film. Maybe it's a rights issue thing, I don't know. But there's a great sense of creepiness. It's not that scary, I wouldn't say. There's some really good scares towards the end. But yeah, I think they have a really great stab at it, so I'll go like in 7.9, I think.
Wow. Okay. Right. Okay. Interesting. So I'm going to go really high. My problem with the film isn't actually the direction. I actually think it's phenomenal.
As is high on scores for the last 3 weeks or something.
Yeah. But I think it's really, really well directed. I think it's visually quite amazing.
Okay.
Not even just if I say, the scene I like. There are so many scenes where I just think the special effects are done in a really good way. The camera work is done in a really good way. The sound design. Everything is done to a very high standard. And so, so I don't know. Like, me, instinctively, I kind of want to go as high as like a 9.4 for directing.
Really?
Personally, yeah. Personally, me. Yeah, I quite like the directing. I do have major issues with the film, but I don't think it's the directing. To me, it's the script. I think there are major problems with the script, which we'll get onto. And that's my least favourite part of the film. There are things that, I think are ill-advised as decisions, but I think how it's actually done, like how it's actually shot, I really like. I'm not going to take away from that.
Right, screenplay then. So what are your issues with the screenplay? Let's get straight into it.
So I have several major issues. I think one of the major issues I have with the screenplay is, I don't know, it takes a long time to actually get anywhere, you know. And I know, you know, you say this with some films, and you kind of want to be pretentious. It's like, oh, you know, it's a long film, you know, it's good. Oh, it needs to be that length. I don't think it really needed to be the length that it was. I was really shocked when I started watching it, and it was like 3 hours. I was like, Jesus Christ, 3 hours?
Wow.
And then it wasn't really one of
2.5 hours.
It felt like 3 hours. It felt like 6 hours. Christ, It just kept going and going and going. So, you know, I don't know. To me, that was a major problem. Just like, I suppose, what would you call it? The pacing of it. It just took way too long to get going. Took too long to, like, introduce everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, and to introduce the actual conflict, you know? So that's one major problem I had. Another major problem I had is, although I say a lot of positive things about, you know, the True Knot and the effects of them, I didn't feel they were a great threat until maybe right at the end, and even then, maybe just barely.
Oh, right.
They kind of die very easily, like, you know, as, like, this major threat. I was actually more scared for them that Danny and the little girl especially would just one-shot them. They die left and right.
They're like zombie balloons, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't do favors for them in the fear factor, because you're like, oh my god, these guys, the True Knot, you see them like eat a child and stuff, and you're like, oh man, these people are evil. And Danny's like, oh yeah, to the little girl, you should be scared of them. But she's like launching them several feet in the air, can read their minds at a whim. You know, she pretends to be a bunny, and they try and... It's like, her powers are insane. And they meanwhile, they were set up as like immortals. Oh, you know, we live a long time. It's not even that you just have to starve them. You can just shoot them in the head, and they just like explode. I was like, you know, I don't know. I didn't really feel like they were a great threat. I only felt like they were a threat, like, basically towards the end when she takes many of the containers, Rose, and I'm like, okay, now she's going to be a threat.
Yeah.
And then she does pin Dan for, like, you know, a couple of minutes, and you're like, oh, and she's stabbing him and eating him, and you're like, oh my god. But then she immediately gets, like, murdered by all the ghosts and the thing. So those are my two major problems with the script. It took way too long to get going, and the villains, to me, while cool, and I quite like Rose the Hat, didn't really feel like a threat through most of the movie. So,
no.
Yeah.
I felt like, you know, Rose the Hat was fairly threatening to me. I did feel like she was quite powerful. But as you said, saying that, when it does feel like she's kind of a bit naive as well and very arrogant, because Abra does feel like she's really powerful compared to Rose the Hat, but yet Rose the Hat keeps trying to battle her with her mind. But saying that, it does feel like Rose the Hat is a big threat to Danny, though, you know.
Yeah.
So I did feel that. With the length thing, I didn't really have a problem with how long it was. It's very much a character piece, and I quite enjoyed that. Just delving deep into Danny's psyche, I quite like that. But I think it had to be fairly long for the Overlook stuff to work, because, you know, I like the fact that you have to wait like 2 whole hours before we get to the Overlook. You know, and it makes it that more satisfying, you know, and I know we get a little bit at the beginning, but I felt like the timing was spot on when we got there. You know, any longer the film drags, any sooner the scares and the tension wouldn't work as well, and just wouldn't have the same impact. But so lengthwise, it is very long, but I'm usually a very patient viewer of things, so it didn't bother me too much. They introduce a lot of like interesting ideas to do with like the shining power, the True Knot. You know, they prey on children with the shining powers, and they get steam so they can remain immortal. I like that idea. And like Andy is like a pusher, and she can manipulate people. Like Crow Daddy can, weird name, but he can locate like other children with steam, and there are lookers, which is what Abra Stone is. played by Keely Curran, and she can listen to other people's minds, which I think Danny is like a looker too. And the fact that he can look into people's memories. But what I liked is the fact that everyone's powers aren't defined, like, for example, the X-Men.
Yeah.
And I feel like the film's keeping you guessing about what the full potential is with their powers.
Yeah.
And it feels like Rose the Hat has a lot of like different powers. You know, and I think that's what the best horror films do. You know, nothing is fully explained about what the Shining powers are.
I think one of the things that they did quite well, and it didn't feel ham-fisted, and it did flesh it out, is so you got the True Knot, so they're preying on kids. I like how they segue into their inner workings of them inducting someone. So there's that woman at the cinema, and they're like, "Oh, watch her," and she's basically she can like dominate minds, you know. And she's like, you know, you're
manipulate people.
Yeah, manipulate people. They just do as she said. And they're like, wow, she's powerful. Yeah, should we eat her? It's like, no, let's like induct her. And then you have basically she takes her and, you know, they do this ceremony and induct her among her ranks. And I just kind of like the building. And then when they're trying to explain other things about how the True Knot works, like if they don't eat long enough, you know, and you see the granddaddy sort of disappear, it doesn't feel like, you know, like those stupid exposition parts where a character says something to a character like they should already know.
Yeah.
They're explaining it to the audience. With the case of like the True Knot, if they're trying to explain their inner workings or like their powers or what happens to them and all these other things, she's explaining it to this inductee, like, you know, because she's not been there that long. And I quite like that. It's like, yeah, this is how we kind of do this. This is how we do that. It felt quite natural. So, you know, if you're going to do like exposition, I think that's the best way to do it. Just have somebody come in and then you're explaining it to them, you know. And then shockingly enough, she dies. She's not like really a major character. Although she kills a really major character though, just as she dies. I thought that was a shock. Like his best friend blows his fucking head off as she's dying. It's like shoot yourself.
Yeah, I loved Emily Lynn's performance as Snakebite Andy, you know. Was it Danny finds her in the caravan, you know, after the gunfight, and she says to Danny, "Aren't you sleepy?" And she's got like her head low and eyebrows low and her eyes high, like staring at Danny. Not difficult to do, but I always love it when actors do that sinister sort of thing. Then when Billy shoots her and then she's dying and she's going through like the decomposing process, but then makes Billy shoot himself, and she's like gasping in pain whilst laughing at the same time while she dies. I thought that was a great performance from her. In the script, I think when like Danny suggests that they should go to the hungry place, i.e. the Overlook Hotel, to like trap Rose the Hat, I could definitely like see that coming ages ago, you know, as soon as you get the sense that the True Knots won't stop until they get Abra. That was the only like logical thing that was going to happen in like a Shining sequel. But, you know, that's not really a criticism, but I wanted it to happen. I wanted to see what they were going to do with like the Overlook Hotel in this film. So that's kind of what I quite liked about the script, is that this whole thing is just building and building to the climax of the Overlook stuff. And then when they match the opening shots of The Shining, but it's all like snowy, was really cool. And you have the iconic score, but it definitely had like more of an epic feel to it. I did get chills in those shots. I was like, oh, this is awesome, because I am quite a big Stanley Kubrick fan, you know. That was just a great moment for me. And I really liked the little scene right at the end where Abra walks into the bathroom with like the manky lady to put her in her own mind box like Danny did as a kid right at the start, which kind of mirrors both characters. It was a nice touch there.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool as well, that he sacrificed himself by blowing up the hotel, and then it's like he's her teacher from beyond the grave of how to use the Shining and stuff, just like the old man kept teaching him after his death. I thought that was pretty cool. And and taught him how to, you know, bind spirits and stuff. He did the same. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I thought that was really good.
You got a favourite line? Or?
I like the like little words of wisdom like a lot of the characters have. They always got to spout off some sort of line where you're like, that's wise. You know, even Rose does that. A lot of characters do these like little wise lines. I think my favourite is when Danny is talking to the spirit of his dad, Jack Torrance.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I thought that was cool. It was kind of a shame that the guy looks like Jack Nicholson, but he doesn't sound like him at all. You know?
Does he, though?
He kind of looks like him, like he looks a little like him.
I'm
He
not
looks a
sure.
little like him. Looks half like him.
Not compared to the actress that looks like Shelley Duvall, though. She's
She's spot on,
completely
yeah.
like her.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I would even say the actor that played, the black guy that like taught him how to use The Shining and stuff.
Yeah.
He looks fairly close to the original actor.
Yeah.
But anyway, so my favorite line is because through most of this he's struggled with alcohol, and he's been clean in this town for 8 years, and then he was thinking about taking a drink because everything's going to shit, and Jack keeps wanting him to drink, and I like the line where he just goes, he says something like, "A man takes a drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes a man." I quite like that. I just thought that was kind of pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like full circle, and then he just rejects the alcohol.
I think my favourite line is when Danny is in the hospice and he's talking to one of the patients and he says, "We're all dying. The world is one big hospice with fresh air."
Yeah, that was an amazing line.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really made me think. That made me stop, pause the film, and go,
Yeah.
"Wow."
Very, philosophical.
Yeah, that was a good line. Yeah, I think that's probably tied with that one. Man, Danny is a fucking poet. He is not just a shiner. He's an absolute. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just keep getting in my head when you keep saying Shiner. I'm like, I can just visualize a spoof of this film where everyone's got black eyes. Anyway. Like, he's got superpowers. He's got a black eye.
Yeah. Where'd you get that shiner? I talk too much.
Screenplay score for me, I liked it. There are some scenes I think you could have definitely cut out. Not to complain that this film is too long. I don't mind the length of this film, I really don't. But some of the scenes did feel a little unnecessary and a bit too excessive. But as the story goes, I kind of like this idea that it's kind of like a mind chase film. I love the fact that we get to the Overlook Hotel, because I was a bit anxious about that stuff. I was like, oh God, what are they going to do? Is it just going to be full fan servicey? But I think they do some really inventive stuff there. So I'll go like a solid 8, I think. How about you, sir?
It's pretty good. I do like the film. I will still say, and we're going to disagree on this, to me it felt unnecessarily long, and I would have cut out a lot more, like especially earlier in the film, or at least get to the point, like at least half an hour earlier. I just felt it took way too long explaining the world before anything got going. I would have had the child murder happen, because that's what kicks it off. Have that happen a lot earlier, just so the ball could get rolling. That was my major concern with the film. Yeah, I'll go like 8.1 or something like that. I know, it's going to come strange, but yeah, I actually do think the directing is better than the script, but maybe that's just me.
Right, acting then. We touched on it a little bit. I must say Alex Esso as Wendy Torrance is amazing. She literally sounds and acts just like Shelley Duvall from The Shining. Just absolutely incredible. Compare that, though, to the actor who plays Jack Torrance, like Henry Thomas, at the end of the Overlook Hotel. I was never really convinced or sure that this was actually Jack Nicholson's character until Danny literally says dad to him. I was not sure that scene added anything, or other than that it brings up like Danny's alcoholism. Yeah, I agree, there's some nice lines in there, but I'm not sure you needed it, to be honest. It did feel like bad fan service to me. That was the only scene I was like, yeah, you don't need it, really. And I'm like, if you can't find like a good convincing actor to play Jack Nicholson, which I know would be incredibly hard, just drop the scene. You're only going to be left disappointed, and I was less disappointed.
Well, I'm sure there are some really good actors that can mimic Jack Nicholson. Actually, here's a crazy one: Jim Carrey. Have you seen his impression of Jack Nicholson?
No.
It's good. It's really good. You could have had Jim Carrey
right.
in like a wig and makeup, and
Yeah.
he would have been an amazing Jack Nicholson. You know, I think we disagreed with this, but I think he did kind of look like Jack Nicholson, or a really young Jack Nicholson. But when he speaks, I'm like, what the fuck is that? He sounds nothing like him. He
Yeah,
acts
exactly,
nothing
so-
like him, and you're like, yeah, this is a bit weird. This is a bit off-putting.
It's just such a shame because they cast Wendy Torrance so well. You know, they literally fooled me, you know, in that jump scare when she's screaming and when Jack crashes the axe through the door.
Yeah.
You know, that was so... I literally thought that was footage from The Shining,
Yeah.
you know. But
Well,
it
I was
wasn't.
saying I also quite liked his mentor. What do you think about him? Like his spirit?
Yeah, I thought he was great as well. Yeah, Carl Lumley.
I thought he was brilliant. He, you know, I thought he was good with the little that he had. I also really just like Ewan McGregor. I thought he was great. And surprisingly, yeah, I don't know what you think about this. What do you think about the little girl? Because I thought she was pretty good.
Abra. Yeah, I thought she was great.
Yeah.
Again, like, if you've heard some of the other podcasts we've done, I'm not a huge fan of child acting. But I think, you know, she does really well.
You know, I'm going to kind of say this. I think this is kind of one of my favorite child performances that we've seen. I think she does a pretty damn good job, especially like she's in it a lot.
Yeah.
She's like a main character. And she's really, but just everything. Like when she's just having fun with like Dan and her powers. I buy that. I buy when she's like distraught over this little boy that's being killed, or when she's scared, or even when like she's possessed by the mind of Ewan McGregor and she has this like personality change.
Yeah, she's great.
I just thought it was great. I
Yeah.
thought she did a really damn good job actually. With what
Really
she did.
convincing there.
She was very
of
convincing.
being Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, she plays a pretty damn good Ewan McGregor. I thought she was really good. And I think the fact that she's a child, you know, she's like 12 or 13 or something, and she's in most of the film, and she's a main plot focus. I think she did a damn good job, and I think it would have been very distracting if she was, you know, not up
Yeah.
to scratch.
Definitely. They definitely cast her really well. Kaylee Curran. I really liked Cliff Curtis's performance as Billy Freeman, who's helping Danny, like, dig up something, and he's talking about, like, killing a buck, but he lost him, and finishes by saying, "Then I smelled him, found that buck, holed up in a hollow trunk, dead for days, the smell. Never hunted a day since. This is the same smell." You know, he kind of looks like scared but angry at Danny at the same time. Like, what the hell are we digging up here, dude? You know, I just quite like that subtle performance from Cliff Curtis there. He does a nice supporting role there. But I got to say, my favourite performance though is Rebecca Ferguson as Rose the Hat. I think she's amazing.
Yeah, she is really
as the leader of the True Knots.
Yeah.
Just like this brilliant arrogance and sinister vibe you get from her.
Also charisma as well.
You very rarely see that type of performance. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
She's got a lot of charisma. It's like you could kind of picture her as like a hippie cult leader. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd follow her, you know.
Really? I'm not sure about that. But
Yeah, let's torture and eat some children.
she's creepy as fuck, to be fair.
Fuck it, let's do it.
But it's great because you rarely see female characters like this. It's just so refreshing to see such a sinister, you know, and charismatic character for an actress, you know. And then she brings some like amazing anger to her performance as well when she's kind of battling Abra in like, you know, the mind battles.
Yeah.
You know, she's great there. Is your favourite performance Rebecca Ferguson as well?
I'm actually going to give it to the little girl, strangely enough. Yeah, I
Kaylee
think,
Curran.
Yeah. Just mainly just because of one, her age, and just like what she has to do in the film. And I don't know, I was quite impressed.
After discussing it, I think it's, for me, it's like one of the best elements of the film, I would say. So I would go like 8.2
All right.
for acting. How about you, sir?
So I'm going to go much higher than that. I'm going to go like maybe an 8.9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, as it's
No.
high on scores.
Yeah.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Dr. Sleep, or for some diehard fans, what's his name? Stephen King's Dr. Sleep.
Or The Shining 2. This time it's shinier.
Dr. Sleep gets 50.5. So Evil Dead 2 wins with 52.7. So fairly tight, I would say. But yeah, I think it's probably a deserved winner, I would say. Right, next week, as Reminiscence, kind of like a science fiction film, is coming out. And the star of that film is the Australian legend, Hugh Jackman. So we'll be having a look at Hugh Jackman films. So that'll be interesting because we've picked a few Hugh Jackman films already. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we pick. Thank you, Boaz. You've been rather good, as always.
Have I got demoted? What's going on?
All right. Bye.
Rather. You've been rather terrible. Anyway, yeah. See ya. Bye.
That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss related to upcoming releases, let us know on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast and on Twitter at FVF_podcast. Remember, please subscribe. Pod signing off.